But let's say a very good morning, as it is Wednesday morning, to Mr. Neil Oliver. Neil, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike Graham. Good to see you.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us once more. I was I've very much felt for you when you wrote on Sunday that one of your kids had said, I just want it to get back to the way it used to be, because I think we've all had that conversation with our children, many of whom are quite confused, I think, by this whole kind of madness that we've been enveloped in for the last 4 months.
Yeah, well, I mean, our youngest is 12, and the expression, the language that he used that particularly caught me was he said he was homesick.
Yeah.
I could see him down, a bit down in the mouth, and when asked why, he said, "I'm homesick." And I said, "What do you mean homesick?" And he said, I'm homesick for the way things used to be. And I thought, out of the mouths of babes, that was such a perfect description of the feeling that I found that I had too. The past famously is a foreign country, and my son was looking back at his own recent past and feeling homesick for the atmosphere that he realises now he once took for granted.
Yes.
And already at a young age he's realising that which we think will stay the same forever, that ain't necessarily so.
Right.
In terms of how we get back, how we overcome the homesickness, I can only really speak to what I do here where I live. We live in Stirling, right in the centre, in the heart of Scotland, and it's a city technically, but really most people would experience it as a town, and it's surrounded by wonderful countryside and landscape. I can see the beginnings of the Highlands from where I live, and we're surrounded by green spaces. And I have found, and I've tried to help the kids feel a sense of home by just going back out and experiencing what's still available to us, which is the landscape. The piece that I wrote on Sunday was about the idea of the staycation. And I think there's something very, very deeply important about reconnecting with and reminding ourselves of the unchanging nature of some of the landscape where we live. And I'm sure everyone can find their own way to do it. I do it here by going out and seeing the things that haven't changed. There's a little bit of bedrock that I walk past on a walk that I do with our dog every day, and it's got carved into it are Neolithic cup and ring marks. Now, they were made, 4,000-5,000 years ago by some farmer, and they're carved into the quartz dolerite that is the same rock as Stirling Castle sits upon. It's quartz dolerite material, and it's 300 million years old.
Wow.
And those cup and ring marks are 5,000 years old. And I consciously, I put my hand on it and I reconnect, and I remind myself that whatever's happening now is a passing page in a very long story. And I go and I remind myself about the things nearby that haven't changed, which is the view to the hills, the rock, the bedrock, and the landscape around me. And I know that it provides a degree of comfort to the kids as well, that they think everything's changing. Everything around us is so different. And you think, well, yes, but you can still physically lay your hands on the things that are eternal.
Yes.
And that we're here.
Yes, and I think that's right. But I suppose from the children's point of view, they're looking at the world through different eyes, and they're seeing different things. And I guess they're seeing things disappearing, as opposed to the rock that you talk about, which won't disappear, hopefully,
yes.
Because it can never really be eroded, because it's maybe too hard. But it's almost as though something like Stonehenge is disappearing into the ground, I guess,
Yes, I'm hoping you're right. I mean, it's not enough just to take solace in the permanent parts of the landscape. We're very much hoping that when in Scotland here, the kids go back to school next week. We're ahead of we go back earlier than schools in the rest of the UK.
Yeah.
And we're very much hoping that as far as possible, the schools will be normal in inverted commas.
Yeah.
And we wait to see exactly how the school is going to operate. The kids go to just the local high school. It's our youngest is just starting out in first year of high school, and the other two are still there. And we hope that they will be able to reconnect with normality in their school environment. And we'll wait and see how that actually unfolds. Because I've said before, while I appreciate the urgency and the necessity with which the government have applied controls and restrictions on what people do, it's having consequences. And we're particularly concerned about how it's affecting our kids.
Yeah.
And
Well,
And
exactly. And I thought it was
the
particularly unfortunate. And I know this because my own 15-year-old is waiting for his GCSE results, which are going to come ridiculously at the end of August, even though they could have given them to him pretty much at the end of June. That they kind of marked everybody down up in Scotland for their exams because somehow they thought that was the right thing to do. I mean, surely of this year of all years, it was the year maybe to mark them up.
Yes, like everyone else, I mean, I'm just kind of waking up to this story that's being reported variously across the media. I don't feel confident that I'm sure exactly what has happened or what has. I'm certainly aware of what's been alleged to have happened. Yes, I agree with you. I would have thought that when so much has been out of people's control or out of the authorities' control, it would be nice if the exam experience for the kids who went through a completely disrupted exam period. Our daughter didn't even get to sit her higher exams, and the calculation about results had to be made based on prelims and her performance throughout the year. And I would have thought that to make that as easy and stress-free as possible, it might have been an easier path to take. And this idea that perhaps whole tranches of the population, the school population, have been marked down, and that in schools' overall results have been sort of downgraded. And I say again, I'm not exactly sure what has happened, far less what's supposed to have happened. But yes, it's lo and behold, yet another anxiety and stress seems to have been landed on the children, the people going through. I mean, when you're 15, 16, 17, you're going through your exams and you're thinking about the future, that's so stressful anyway.
Yeah.
And in this time of COVID and quarantine and all the rest of it, a bit of reassurance for the kids might have been better than another layer of uncertainty.
Yeah, because I mean, certainly what they're planning to do in England, I don't know if they did the same thing in Scotland, was originally they were going to take their mocks as the guide, basically, but they were then going to take sort of their teachers' assessments into account as well. They've now decided to introduce the dreaded modelling, which is the thing that seems to take us into so many bad places. Let's look into a model and let's kind of predict what would happen, and let's then, proselytise on the fact that is going to be the result, when in fact it's just made up, right? And so I worry that the kids of the teenage now generation that you and I have got haven't really got any faith in the system anymore, because the system doesn't work. The system is kind of collapsing around them. And one of the things you need, I think, as a teenager is a system so that you can rebel against it. They can't rebel against it because there isn't one.
Yes, it is just, they must be, you forget, or I suppose it's easy as adults to overlook how much even young children are actually assimilating and absorbing about what's going on. And what our youngest said, you're suddenly pulled up short and you think, oh yeah, they really are in touch with what's going on. I'm thinking that he or they are oblivious, but they're not. Even at 12 years old, they've absorbed a surprising amount of what is going on. Yes. And they're in this atmosphere of uncertainty, and I think uncertainty is the worst of times. It's when you want confident, straightforward decisions to be made. Everything's so amorphous at the moment. Everyone is being made to live in a perpetual limbo, an amorphous cloud where we don't know, even after months of what has already passed, there's no sense of an end game and getting back to a normality. And that constant uncertainty is enervating and wearying and corrosive, and it erodes everyone's confidence. While we all understand what the problem that the governments have been dealing with, nonetheless, there's millions of people out there who need a sense of certainty and a confidence in the future. And it just one decision after another at the moment just seems to create more and more layers of uncertainty. And there will undoubtedly be consequences for that. People need establishments that they can trust. And for children, they need to be able to rely on the school, their education and their school population and the atmosphere at school to be just normal. Our elder two are going back in, one into 6th year, one into 4th year, and they just want normal. That's what they're saying. They just want to go back in, see their friends, see their teachers, and to be educated the way they were before this all started to happen.
And
I so sympathise with that.
And hopefully, there are lessons perhaps that England can learn from Scotland, because as you say, Scotland goes back a little bit earlier than England does. Because at the moment, certainly in England, it's impossible to make any plans, because I'm not even sure that all of the teachers are singing with one voice. I'm not even sure that all the schools are going to be open when they say they're going to be open in September. I mean, what's the Scottish situation? Are they saying they're all going to open?
It depends. Like everyone, it depends what you read and what you listen to, and it's a slightly uncertain. It's an uncertain situation, without a doubt. Yeah. I think the atmosphere the message we seem to be getting is that they're hoping for the best, and that they're hoping that as far as possible that the schools will go back in and function normally. There's minimal talk of social distancing or masks or any of the other upsetting complications that have been talked about in the past. And we're desperate that be the case, that they go back in and catch a sense of normality and start to be able to work towards a normal future. I just feel so vexed for them. We understand the difficulties, but as far as possible, I just hope the kids can go back in and think, yes, this is the school that I recognise, and this is the way it used to work. They are talking about changes, without a doubt. The way in which the kids will be fed at lunchtime, and the one-way systems, and staggered lunch times, so that they're minimising the number of people that are gathered together in one place. But
yeah.
As far as possible, without a doubt, everybody needs to get back to normal, proper normal.
Yeah, but also if you think about the length of time that they've been off school, I mean, it's a bit like looking at. When I didn't see my dog for about 8 weeks, we worked out that in a dog's world, that was about a year of a human life, and it took a little adjustment when I first went to see him again. It was about probably 2 or 3 hours before he was kind of normal around me. He was kind of confused. He was, quite affectionate, but not quite himself. And I think for kids to be back with their friends that they haven't seen for the best part of 6 months is going to be quite tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Big adjustment. We're taking this for granted. I mean, never mind the life of a dog. In the life of a 12-year-old, to have been off school for half a year,
right?
Just to go back in. And getting up in the morning, we're already saying next week, in the run up to the D-Day of going back to school, they're going to have to do some dry runs and rehearsals about setting alarms and getting up, because otherwise, getting up at 7 o'clock on that fateful first morning is going to be a real chore.
Well, I have the same conversation with my 15-year-old every weekend. Can you please try and get up a bit earlier this week? And then he says he will, and then he doesn't.
I have to say, beyond the short term going back to school, I have had enormous reassurance from talking to our kids. I've got a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and we have long conversations with them. Because we're together all the time, and yet there's an enormously reassuring common sense from them.
Yeah,
and you get to know that this generation that are coming up, I don't know what you call them. Are they Generation
I've no
Z?
idea. I've lost the plot on that. I don't know.
I've lost the plot with all of that. But all I can say is that they talk in language, and they have aspirations and an assessment of the situation that I recognise 100%. And I'm not saying that the objective is to produce children that are just carbon copies of your own opinions and aspirations. Right. All I'm saying is I recognise their attitude, and they're incredibly pragmatic. Practical and sensible, and that gives me huge reassurance. My eldest, my daughter, she this year will be thinking about what she's going to do with her future, applying for university maybe, or looking forward to the next stage. And the way she talks, sometimes I think, my goodness, it's like listening to the wisdom of the ancients. Sometimes out of the mouths of babes, and the 12-year-old and the 14-year-old, they say things, and you think, yes, actually, here I am worrying about this world situation in which we are. And some of the things that the kids say, they cut through it like like lemon juice through fat.
Yeah.
They just think, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And we will get beyond this. And I get great reassurance from the wisdom of our because it's there.
I find my two teenagers to be far more tolerant than I am as well, which is probably not difficult, some might say, but they're very kind of worldly wise, and we've travelled a lot, I suppose, which has helped, and we've maybe given them the opportunity to think for themselves, but they're very tolerant, very kind of non-judgmental, it seems to me.
Yeah, what seems to have happened with ours, I've been, the way I've felt about Britain, the British Isles, for the last 20 years on account of the work that I've done and the trips that I've done within these islands, I am absolutely in love with the British Isles. It was in that column that you mentioned. I mean, I'm suffused with a passionate love for this place, for the story of this place. And our kids have definitely, unavoidably absorbed a healthy measure of that. And I think, because I'll say to anyone that Britain is the best place in the world to live, for any shortcomings that it might have. If you look back at the history and the lessons that we have learned from it and the aspirations that we've had in the past and that have been made manifest in the present, it's a wonderful place. Some of your earlier callers there were talking about, asylum seekers and migrants and people wanting to come here. And who could really put their hand on their heart and blame anyone for wanting to come here? Right. It's a wonderful place. And our children have absorbed some of that. And it's so important that people appreciate. I consider us, for all the travails that we're going through at the moment, I still maintain that people who have the opportunity to grow up or live and raise a family in the British Isles are blessed people. Whatever shortcomings that there might be in the short term, this is a wonderful place.
Well, people have been coming here, as you know better than most people, Neil. People have been coming here for centuries, haven't they?
Well, of course, and you cannot. That causes stresses. Of course, it does. I think the government needs to be much more honest with people about numbers and exactly what plans are in relation to people arriving. You need to be honest with people about how many people are arriving and what the plan is to deal with that in the future. That there's an honesty that's required. But no wonder we ought really to take confidence from the fact that other people from other parts of the world want to be here. Yeah. This place is still a bright light. It still has a magnetic pull for people from all over the world, and you want to be in the place. I suppose at the very least you want to be where everyone else wants to come. Yeah. There's great reassurance to be had from that. But what is the responsibility of the generation that's in charge now is to maintain what it is that has attracted people for hundreds or for thousands of years. People have been drawn here because this is, for the longest time now, this has been a place of democracy. It's been a place of confidence in the police. It's been a place of where the institutions are to be trusted. It's where you've got, rule of law. All of those things are the reasons why people want to come here. And bless people. Who could blame people for wanting to come here? But parallel with that, of such importance, is the determination and the confidence to maintain what has been here. You maintain the magnetic attraction. You want it always to be a place that people aspire to be. Yes. And that means maintaining the structure. Maintenance and conserving what has been here for a few generations is paramount. And you want to worry about the day when people look at the British Isles and think, I don't want to try and get there. Right. Because it's not like it used to be. Because it's, there's no longer an attraction there. This place, this blessed place that we've all, you have a tendency to take it for granted, its landscape, its history, its traditions, it attracts, and long may that continue. May this always be the place, the brightest light where, that people are drawn to. Yeah. And I don't care how sort of old-fashioned or that makes me sound. I want always to be in the place that everybody else wants to come to. Absolutely right. This sceptred isle, as some might say. Neil, thanks very much indeed. Neil Oliver there, once again, with his very interesting, fascinating take on what's going on this week in the world of politics, in the world of the British Isles, and in your children's world as well, because I think you've got to think about them even more now, particularly as it gets closer to the time when they go back to school, because they haven't been there for a very long time. Let's not forget that. And they're going to need to be kind of trained back into the idea of going to school every single day. Because I, for one, can tell you that I think it's going to be a struggle for my two.